the attic a time capsule of everything from my childhood. Nothing has been thrown away in this attic, and this is actually one of 2 storage places, my dad's garage being the other place. My dad has actually had to put his tools aside in the garage to make way for my things from childhood. And it's got to the point now, as you can see, where it's probably fair if I clear it out, since I haven't lived in this house for 10 years. I need to clarify, my parents haven't actually asked me to clear it out at all, and they never would, they're really cool like that. But I just feel like I'd be moving on if I were to make that step. It's a shame to chuck a lot of this stuff out. I mean, look at the bare essentials that we've got here. Number plate saying Hillary. I think the reason I've kept all of this is because I had such a great childhood and great times with my family and stuff that I just wanted to keep all the memories. But what I've realised now, because this is impractical and is getting in the way, the physical representation of the memories doesn't matter. They can be checked out, because what's important is the times with my family right now. And we have plenty of those. We're going for a meal tomorrow. It's going to be great. So material objects don't matter. So off they go. I've just explained that thought process pretty flippantly, but it's hard to do, you know. I'm at the point now where I can explain it flippantly, but from years and years of therapy, I've got to the point where I can think about throwing these things out. I actually think that this project where I film everything is really just an extension of me keeping all of this stuff. I'm kind of hoarding, but in terms of footage. I can't hoard all this stuff because there's no space for it, but I can film it. That's why I'm okay with throwing it away, perhaps, because I'm able to film it, and I wonder whether I have got over leaving memories behind and stuff. I just had such a great time in my childhood, I just wanted to save it. Just wanted to save it on film. So you could argue that this project here is just an extension of this hoarding obsession, and I've just transferred it to footage instead. It is safe to say this project's got out of hand, you know. This project with me filming everything. At the same time, it's been really good, because the really good thing about this project, if this project where I film everything is good for nothing else, it is good for me being able to look back on how I behaved over the last 10 years. I'm able to look back on my behaviour, how I interacted with my friends and family, and realise that some of it was so wrong, and that I really need to work on how I interact with other people and be less selfish, to be fair. And so that project's enabled me to actually look at myself in a way that possibly no one else ever has in history, and so I'm going to become a better person because of it, I'd like to think. It's just ironic that a lot of what caused me to alienate people along the way was the project itself. The reason I have alienated people is just because I was so stressed, and the reason I was so stressed is because this project's pretty impossible to do, to be fair. Like, for instance, last week's show I did a film where I spoke about my magic days when I was a kid and I was doing magic, and I tried to do cut-ins of various things that were magic memorabilia. Then I come up in the attic and I find this box of magic stuff that's really classic to me, and I didn't actually cut into last week's show, and so it would be a real ball ache to have to then re-edit last week's show, cut in the magic stuff, especially because there's just going to be more examples of that in the future. You know, I'm going to do a show on days when I played basketball as a kid, and then the week that I put that out I'll probably find some more basketball memorabilia, and it's just never ending, so I have to draw the line somewhere. And so it's actually quite therapeutic to chuck all this crap out. Well, some of you tune into the practical jokes, obviously. This was the first practical joke. My dad made some cement, covered it in brown paint, and then we put it outside my neighbour Audrey's house when I was about 5. Then she picked it up, not realised it was fake, picked it up with a shovel and chucked it over the back of her garden. I get the practical jokes from my dad. My dad is to blame. Alright, let's put that on record. Totally obsessed with Wizard of Oz as a kid, right? That's why this is really cool. We went to the Olympus Theatre, saw a pantomime of Wizard of Oz, and the guy that signed it was one of the munchkins in that play, which was actually this man. He was actually in the Wizard of Oz on a career lull, playing a local pantomime version of Wizard of Oz. Betty was actually called up onto the stage, then I went up after her. You know how they call kids up onto the stage? Then on the way up I got really nervous and backed out of it, so that was the first time that I was nervous. Stage fright for the first time. Because I'd always wanted to be a performer, but then I focused towards doing performances of this nature, which was just doing little play versions with cardboard cutouts in a little cardboard theatre. Alright, so that was technically my first performances, so I hope that Wikipedia takes that into account for my years active. Every night I went to bed, my dad used to learn a trick from here, perform it to me in the morning. Right, this was months ago. Everyone knows the magic of the crystal cleaver. Classic stuff. Tragically, I actually brought out my Madness Magic performances for my wife Tina when I was about 20. It went wrong.
What is that to this?
Astounding. I love you.
Nobody does it.
You do.
Wow! How did I have to do that one?
This is a trick blindfold, right? Where you can see out the blindfold. What I did was I lined up the entire neighbourhood, got them to pay, businessmen, right? Made more money back then out of show business than I do now. Rode a bike with a blindfold, but I didn't want to fake it, so I actually, although I did have a fake blindfold, I put a real one on. Rode a bike down a really thin road with them all watching. Adults watching. Irresponsible. I suppose they thought it was the fake blindfold though. Yeah, nutter. Loads of cigarette packets. My granddad's cigarette packets, I actually had lots of... I was allowed lots of cigarette packets from my granddad when I was about 8 years old, with real cigarettes in so I could do tricks. I was also allowed mouse traps. Madness. When I was about 5 years old. So I could put my hand in them and try and take something out of them without it going off. That was the trick. But I used to do it and have it deliberately go off on my fingers to shock people. Confusing popularity with attention back then even. That is something that, even though I've tried to recreate loads of stunts that I didn't film, I'm not going to be doing that one. Not going to be putting my hands in a mouse trap. Really painful. Don't know how I survived it really. Classic stuff. My granddad did this thing where he would present his finger covered in a napkin. You had to cut his finger off with a pair of scissors. The trick was it was a carrot. We all suspected something like that, but because he was getting older, we didn't trust that he'd done the trick properly. We didn't want to cut it, even if it was a carrot, because we thought it might very well be his finger. And lo and behold, I cut it one time, loads of blood came out. But he double tricked me. It was fake blood. That's where I get it from also.
Yeah, that's edited.